Well, hello. It is just super that you are with us this evening. Fox 6 Sports Blitz, chock full of good stuff coming up. We have Lily Zhao, Brandon Cruz, Tim Van Born, and thankfully you. Here's our starting lineup. The Bucs bring in some help ahead of the NBA trade deadline. Baseball just about back. The Brewers get ready to embark on a new season. Robin Lopez pulls up a good book for say what. Badgers take a tumble. Golden Eagles prepare for the #1 team in the country. And we get on the ice for this week's High School Hot Shot. How much does it mean to chase a championship for you? I know this is something.
It's the only thing for me. Only thing left, right? Only thing left for me. Obviously, when it comes to IQ and knowing the game, I know it in and out better than a lot of coaches. But I think, what will seal it for me is a championship. I'm not going to make everyone happy. I'm upset some people the way I, hold myself at a high standard, and I expect everyone else to do the same. So my approach is very strong. Until you really get to know me, But once you get to know me, you understand, hey, man, the only thing he does is want to win.
Well, welcome to town. Patrick Beverley acquired by the Bucs just ahead of the trade deadline, and who knew he knows the game better than a lot of coaches. He's aboard. Bucs are back in the win column. They have the Denver Nuggets coming in on Monday night. Let's start with you, Brandon. Patrick Beverley's been in the game a long time. What's he do for the Bucs?
I think he brings an intensity, something that we've seen before with this team. P.J. Tucker comes to mind when they won the championship, and he does have an IQ, with a basketball IQ that this team really needs. I think what he has is this energy that is definitely going to be infectious, very reminiscent of what Bobby Portis can bring when he comes off the bench. And I think because of his ability to explain to guys how he expects things done. He mentioned it there. He might rub somebody wrong, but his whole point is to try to win, and he's not afraid to try to talk to anybody. In his first game with the Bucs, on the bench, you can see him talking to Brook Lopez, telling him where I think you need to be. This is what you need to do. And while that may bother some guys, I think if this team wants to win, they're going to listen and they're going to gel. And he is going to figure out where he fits in, but he's not going to be afraid to be himself. And I think because of that, and because of his defensive ability and his intensity, that it only helps this team.
The last time the Bucs had a player wearing number 21, Lily, he was pretty darn good and pretty darn impactful. Of course, that would be Drew Holiday. Can the impact be, as Brandon said, really the right fit for a team that looks like it needs a little energy boost?
I think so, right? I think this team was kind of missing a piece. I think they are missing the intensity that comes with a player like Patrick Beverley, and they got him that infusion with P.J. Tucker the year that they won the NBA championship. Again, like Brandon mentioned, he's not afraid to speak his mind. I mean, we saw in that first game, he's taking the clipboard from Doc Rivers and talking to Brook Lopez. He comes to the podium with the Miller Lite. I mean, we're all in Pat Beverley's world, and it's fun to live in right now. I mean, he makes an instant boost coming off the bench. He provides some perimeter defense that is sorely missed. And then I think the most important thing is just the fire, the intensity, and just a veteran point guard who knows Doc Rivers. Again, the two were together in L.A. for a couple seasons and starting in 2017, so they have a familiarity there. And he says, I know Doc's tendencies, so that's really important when you're bringing in a new player who already knows the head coach. So that certainly will help. I think the energy, just, that constant talking, I think with guys, if they need an extra boost, will certainly come from Pat Bev. I think it's much needed.
And he and Damian Lillard kind of burying some past differences that they have had in the league. At least they're saying all the right things as they're now teammates on the Milwaukee Bucks. You were there, though, the night the trade was announced. Before Beverley got here, it was how bad can we be? What can we use to describe that game against the Timberwolves?
I'd say ugly, right? I mean, yeah, granted they were shorthanded. Kind. They were shorthanded, right? Damian Lillard didn't play. Brook Lopez was out for a stint. So this team was really shorthanded, and they were taking on a team who had a really, really good defense, top team in the Western Conference. So it wasn't easy. Giannis was doing his best to kind of keep the team in it, but, they couldn't go toe-to-toe with the T-Wolves. Anthony Edwards knocking down shots like that, and then it slowly built into a game where Thanasis was coming in late because they didn't need the starters anymore because they're getting blown out. So I think that when you're looking at games like this, they're shorthanded. They weren't winning, but I will say this, though. Doc mentioned they're not winning, but they're getting better. They're learning. They're getting better on the defensive end. I think once all that kind of starts to come together and once guys start getting healthy, we'll see how long Chris Middleton is out for. That's all going to start being these stepping stone pieces and getting the Bucks back to where they want to be, and that's playing championship basketball.
You mentioned Doc, and we've talked a little bit about Doc Rivers here. 2-5 so far. The record is not good. The vibe is better than that, Brandon. What's happening?
Well, I think they bought in, and now they're just trying to implement what he wants them them to do, and it's still a learning curve. They're still trying to figure out how they can do it with their personnel, trying to get used to being in certain spots and having different roles or being able to have a different responsibility when it comes to their defense. Because offensively, yeah, they struggled against Minnesota just all the way through, but offensively this team isn't struggling for the most part. It's defensively, but you've noticed a change already that they haven't been giving up too many points in these games. Yes, too many points for losses, of course, but not so many. They're not giving up 150, 140 a night. Instead, they're staying in these games. And to me, what it is unfortunate because of the way the schedule has worked out. They've only had one real practice with Doc. So that is where it's going to take a lot longer than, say, it would have in November or even early December. So that, to me, is what we have to look for and have the patience for them to buy into it. But again, it's a short rope there because after the All-Star break, it's a sprint to the postseason.
But he's seen it all, and you clearly don't get any sense of panic from Doc Rivers. It's kind of like, hey, our record is fine. We're going to put these things together and see what we can do when we get to the playoffs. All of us shall stay tuned and see what's happening with that. We hope you'll stay tuned because we're merely at halftime of the first segment here on the Fox 6 Sports Blitz, which brings us to our Fox 6 Insta poll. And we have a Bucks question for you tonight. You scan the QR code or you go to fox6now.com to answer this. Does the Pat Beverly trade propel the Bucks past the Celtics in the Eastern Conference? We don't mention the Knicks. We don't mention the Heat. Who knows? Who else?
The Cavs.
Or the Cavs. Who else is going to be up there? I don't know. But what about the Celtics? We're going to get the Bucks past the Celtics. We shall see what you have to say. So please participate.
We're kidding ourselves to think that this thing's going to be decided on paper because we lost Burns and Woodruff, and it's getting the guys to understand that, if you want to make it happen, it starts with you. Take that responsibility and get after it. But the other team at the end of the series has got to feel you, and that feeling. And when you've competed with that freedom, and you've competed with that here and now, that you're in the now, it's scary what you can accomplish.
Pat Murphy saying all the right things as the Brewers approach the start of spring training, showing up with pitchers and catchers. And what else is he going to say, Brandon?
Well, he's not going to say, oh, you know what? This team's terrible. Don't watch us. Let's look to 2025. No, he realizes what this fan base understands is that they've lost their two best pitchers, and now there are a lot of question marks in that rotation as they embark on the 2024 season. But the one thing that this team has shown is how much they like playing for him. I mean, we don't know him as a manager yet. We've only known him as the bench coach. But all the guys seem to really connect with him, and that is such a big thing in baseball. It's staying connected, and that's always been a message for this team for years now, and I don't think that changes with him as the manager. And I think you will have the veterans and the guys that know him so well from being the bench coach for so long, as that this is his team and they know what's to be expected. And that, to me, is the advantage going into spring training with a quote-unquote new manager.
And this is the team as it's on the roster right now. Is Willie Adames going to be around the whole time? And is Devin Williams going to be around? David Stearns, former Brewers president of baseball operations, admitting that he regrets the Josh Hader tape. Devin Williams is basically contractually the same place Josh Hader was. What do you anticipate happening for this all-star reliever?
I hope that they keep him in Milwaukee. I know, you talked about the regret there with trading away Josh Hader and what that kind of did to the clubhouse, right? Just the morale and the guys were kind of stunned by the trade, I would say. But I think you have to keep a guy like Devin Williams in the clubhouse. He brings a presence there. He's been there for years now. He's been the closer. He's been in that role, and he knows guys in the clubhouse. He knows Pat Murphy. He has that familiarity. So if you get rid of a closer like that, who do you bring in? And how does everything set up now in your with your relief pitcher? So I think it will be kind of incumbent on the team to keep Devin Williams. We'll see if that does happen. But then you have the other piece of Willie Adames. Do they trade him at all? Because there are some spots in the infield where do they keep it at shortstop? Do they move Joey Ortiz to third? What do they do in terms of their infield if they don't have Willie Adames? So a lot of kind of important pieces to fall, but hopefully Devin Williams, Willie Adames maybe do stay in the fold.
Based on what we saw last year, the Brewers have a very good catcher in William Contreras. They signed a pretty intriguing second catcher this week in Gary Sanchez. His numbers were down for a few years, kind of had a resurgent season last season, and has had some big power numbers in Major League Baseball.
I think by signing him, you're telling the other catchers that you brought in that your job might not be guaranteed here with the Brewers. I think Gary Sanchez really is a perfect backup for what they're looking for because he has pop, because he has the experience with the Yankees and with the Padres, and because he's a veteran, it's that comfort that you have with guys on the mound, especially with how many younger pitchers they're going to be having, at least on the roster at this point. So if you have a veteran back there that is your backup catcher, that only helps your staff. And I think because of what he brings offensively, he's the guy that's, to me, going into camp with that number 2 position.
We heard a lot about run prevention in recent years, Lily. The defense on the infield looks like it could still be pretty good. That helps run prevention. The bullpen looks like you still have some guys who produce. That helps run prevention. Are we potentially underrating the Brewers?
I think maybe a little bit there, right? I think when you're looking at what they have at the infield, right, if you play Rhys Hoskins at first base, if you play Bryce Terang at second, Joey Ortiz at third, and then you have Willie Adames at shortstop, I think that's a pretty good infield. And you're talking about the relievers that were great setup men last year for Devin Williams, and those guys really did a good job, kind of owning their role, per se, in relief. So I think when you're looking at that group and the defense as well, I think Bryce Terang was coming off a really good season, especially with his glove. I think those young guys in the infield really will kind of pay dividends, having gotten that experience last season. So I really wouldn't count the Brewers any terms of short with their run prevention and their defense. I think that's still going to be pretty good this year.
We're about to start seeing baseball video highlights coming up from Arizona. Pitchers and catchers are getting to town. Then the Chiefs repeat, as you probably know, tonight, Super Bowl champs. They beat the Niners in overtime. Of course, the Packers beat the Chiefs during the regular season. Speaking of the Packers, we'll get to them in just a moment. This guy was once in line to maybe be a defensive coordinator in Green Bay. It's Jim Leonhard, the former Badgers player and defensive coordinator, interim head coach, going to the Denver Broncos in the NFL. That report out tonight from ESPN.com. Leonhard would replace Christian Parker, who was a former Packer assistant coach as well, and interviewed for the defensive coordinator job. And getting to those Packers, the search process is now public regarding the succession of Mark Murphy, the team president, who's required by team bylaws to retire at the age of 75, and that will be coming up at 70, rather. They'll be coming up in 2025. So the team is going to use the executive board to find a successor to Mark Murphy. We hope you'll be back for the successive segments of our show in just a moment.
Did you find yourself channeling your inner Hulk tonight?
I don't get your question.
I've been rated high as a funny man.
Certainly, you're talking about one of the all-time greats.
When the Hulk voice or Jan's voice?
That's a good question.
Traded to Sacramento, and he's going to be waived, and now he's not even watching the game, Jim Pete. He's just reading
he's reading backstory too. I
really engaged. He is not looking up at all.
He's a Stanford guy. And you know what? He's not at the beginning either. He's been reading this book for a while. Did he check it out from the library? Was there like a stamp on top?
And it was a library book. Robin Lopez, who was traded to the Kings, going to be released or already has. Is he going back to college, or are we done? What are we doing now? It was kind of interesting to see him do that, and I know it's probably a little strange for him to have been traded away from his brother's team, but that is the life in the NBA. Well, life in college right now is very good for Marquette, as they've won 7 straight, and yesterday, Tim, they have St. John's on National Marquette Day, and they didn't show up in the first half. But all of a sudden, after halftime, this was a different team.
Kicked it in. Tyler Kolek was the springboard for all that stuff. He has such vision when he plays that way, and he can do so many different things. But he had the points going, and he had the assists going, and he helped bring the energy. They're still trying to make up for the injury, I think, to Sean Jones, who's a nice little grit, kind of energizer player. They have gotten this winning streak going again and kind of rebuilding their confidence. Huge crowd always for National Marquette Day, and they were able to get the win.
And when you see Tyler Kolek, has he put things into a different gear now that they're in the final push?
I think so. You talked about hitting that shot at the buzzer, and he said, after I hit that, everything just was kind of coming easy for me. I think this, again, the way that this team goes, it's how Tyler Kolek goes, and he's been playing at such a phenomenal level, and that's why they're, sustaining this win streak. But I think he really has figured things out, and I think this is what they need to have happen as the March Madness gets closer, because when you're looking at the schedule, circle it on Saturday at UConn, the #1 team in the country. I think that's going to be a phenomenal matchup, and Tyler Kolek needs to play like Tyler Kolek for Marquette to get a win there. But I think it's going to be really fun to see, though, because two games against UConn still coming up on the schedule.
And UConn's got like 2 starting fives there. Quickly with the Badgers, what has happened? They've dropped 4 straight, and they haven't looked good at all in those 4 losses.
Steven Crowler's gone backwards. They've started to turn the ball over. They can't get the ball off the glass. They are in a free fall. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, Connor Sejan, though, making his presence known, basically the only guy as they keep losing, and we'll see if they can turn things around this week. Let's check in on our Insta poll question. Remember, you can go directly to it by scanning the QR code or going to our website, fox6now.com. Does the Pat Beverly trade propel the Bucks past the Celtics in the Eastern Conference? Right now, 2/3 of you are saying, no, it doesn't. We'll see what happens later in the show. Now, after a week off for the All-Star break, the Admirals are still winning. They picked up 2 more wins this weekend, including a shootout win against Texas last night, extending their win streak to a franchise record 14 straight. Brookfield native Troy Grosnick stopped all 3 star shots in the shootout for a personal 13-game win streak. I mean, what a run these guys are on. I don't know if it's ever going to end. We know what's not ending this show because the high school hotshot is next.
Welcome back. She spent most of her life on the ice, and from there, she's also added a whistle and a coach's hat. That's why she's this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
Hi, I'm Macy Blooming. I'm a junior at Oak Creek High School, and I'm a captain for the Brookfield Glacier girls hockey team. So the different teams that I play for, during the fall, I play for Team Wisconsin, which is a AAA team. For high school season, I play for Brookfield Glacier. And then in the summer, I play for a team that my dad started called Them Girls. There wasn't really a team in this area to play for, so my dad was like, hey, why don't we start one? So now it's grown into about like 70, 80 girls in the Milwaukee area. He got me into skating when I was about like 2 years old. I wanted to be a goalie. Actually, funny story is I didn't really want to skate when I was little. I was kind of lazy. But now that as I get older, it's definitely the most fun position. So I'm reffing all different types of games. That could range from like U10, or it could go up to U19. I've reffed some U19 girls games and some older boys games as well. So I started when I was 12. That's the youngest age you can start. So I started as a level 1, 12 years old. And now at 16, I'm a level 4. Oh yeah! From reffing to coaching, I started just helping with the Dem Girls practices. This summer, I did some camps called Crazy Eights. Being able to be a role model for younger kids is definitely something that I enjoy, because I remember when I was little, I'd always look up to those older players, always be like, oh, hey, I want to be like them. So outside of the sports world, I definitely think I'm interested in like STEM fields or math, business, some medical stuff. Someone mentioned like biomedical, so that's like medical with engineering. I kind of like learning new hobbies. So last year I told myself I was gonna be able to solve a Rubik's Cube, and then I taught myself to juggle, and right now I'm kind of learning how to play the guitar. So my 3 dogs, I have Blake, and then I have Garbanzo, and then Pinto, or Johnny. He has 2 names. He was named after Johnny Cash, but then we wanted to go with the 2 beans, so Garbanzo and Pinto. I'm Macy Blooming. I'm a junior at Oak Creek High School, and I play, ref, and coach hockey. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
And as you guys saw right there, she's also a first-team all-conference goalie, named the best goalie in the Eastern Shores Conference. Macy looks to continue skating, reffing, and coaching on the ice. And of course, a couple former hotshots also making moves to Division I. Wisco Sydney Vitonkel announced this week that she will be taking her arm to Madison. Sydney still has 2 seasons left with the Vikings. And then Kettle Moraine's Drew Wagner also heading to the top of the collegiate ranks. The senior receiver is going to head down I-94 to play for Northwestern. He helped the Lasers win the 2022 state title. We'll be right back.
And this is what you have to think of the Pat Beverly trade. Not quite enough to get the Bucks past the Celtics. We shall see. Speaking of the Bucks,
will they get past the Nuggets? A big test coming for the Bucks at Fiserv Forum Monday, then the Heat and the Grizzlies on the road on Thursday.
And a big week for college basketball. Marquette goes to Butler and then goes to UConn to face the top team in the country, UWM, trying to turn things around at Cleveland State, and then against Northern Kentucky and Wisconsin. Has Ohio State this week, and then they head to Iowa.
interesting mix there for all those teams. And Brewers reporting for spring training this season. That just boosts the spirit, doesn't it?
Feels like spring is here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Smell the grass.
The tulips will be out soon.
It's gonna be good.
Psychological. And maybe the Admirals will keep their streak going, too.
I think so.
They can skate right into springtime the way they're going. That'll do it for us for now. We're going to skate on out of here. We'll see you again next Sunday night.